I bet Batman never does this to his parents. I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Dr. Kurt's dad.
And I'm Eric.
And welcome to Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. This is issue 158. Every week we get together and we talk comics. Sometimes we have group discussions where we talk with spoilers. We will not have any of those this week. So we are going to jump into our non-spoilers, or I shouldn't really call it non-spoilers, as it's more of limited spoilers. So be prepared. There could be, there's oftentimes a minor spoiler here and there when we do that segment. And then when we finish that, we'll come back around to our letters page, where we will ask, what normal day job would the superhero of your choice have if they were fired from saving the world? So let's kick it off with Kirby. What you got for us?
Oh, you jumped the gun on me. Garbage Pail Kids Puketacular. I was hoping Damon would be here because I don't know if he reviewed this or not in the past, because I know how much he likes the Garbage Pail Kids, but get yourself a variety of little stories here. One, basically a couple con kids find out that they got some wacky packages being offered up and they're limited and they're trying to get those. So they do a bunch of stupid things to try and get those cards, and then you can just imagine the typical con little parodies going on throughout there. And then the next one is called the Beep Storm. It's your two characters that happen to have poop issues in their names. And basically Potty Scotty and Jason Basin Burster. And they end up arguing over who craps the most. So they decide to have a contest and basically see who can crap the most. It just gets so bad that it takes over half the earth. And then there's another story in here where there's a short one where Rock is disappointed sitting on the toilet and he's shitting little bricks. And there's another one where our planet gets destroyed and the character takes off across the world, a normal human, and ends up in the garbage pail planet and has to learn how to survive in that environment. And then there's one where a character decides to steal a comic book from the comic book store and ends up stepping on a turd and falling and knocks himself out. And when he comes to
we
after,
leave those lying around too, just in case anybody tried stealing comic books from us.
Yeah, they'd be a good one to let someone steal, because there's a couple other little things in here and stuff, but this is one of the worst comics I think I've ever read. This is a big pile of garbage. But if you like the Garbage Pail Kids, that's why I was hoping Damon was here. I wanted to get his opinion to see. I'm sure he read it. He may have reviewed it, but yeah, this is terrible. Not like the nice surprise that we got from the Franken Punisher, but yeah, this is definitely don't waste your money on this one. So
yeah, I don't recall Damon ever reviewing that, but that would be right up his alley, I suppose.
Yep.
Sounds like it was very commensurate in quality with the Garbage Pail Kids movie. I don't know if everyone's ever seen that.
Yeah.
No.
Right up.
If you ever feel like torturing yourself, yeah, the Garbage Pail Kids movie will definitely do that. And at the end, you're just going to wonder, why did I do that? Why did they do that? Why does it still exist?
Yeah, it lands right there with the Star Wars Holiday Spectacular.
No, that's its own thing. I mean, that's all good, terrible movie watching. So,
good, terrible fun. Yeah.
All right. So, Dr. Kurtzstad.
My first one is the 13th issue of, with my screen background there. You can't see it. Here, let me turn that off for a second. Their screen backgrounds are really great until you go to try to hold something up to the screen and it disappears into the background. There we go. So what I've got is Once and Future volume or issue number 13. Once and Future, for those who haven't followed it along with it, is an incredible comic that if you have any knowledge of Arthurian lore or anything, you will love this because they are so steeped in what the legend of King Arthur is. They have all kinds of tiny little details that are just fascinating to read. The story is of, on the cover here, you'll notice the older woman. Her name is Bridget. She is like part of a secret society that has been guarding the world from the return of an evil Camelot. And she ropes her grandson Duncan into being the new Galahad that now stands up to the evil that might come from ancient Arthurian legends. So the first arc of the series really has Duncan trying to hold off an evil Galahad who's trying to make his way into our universe to make way for Camelot to break back into our world. When that fails, Merlin tries to use another legend from English literature, the Beowulf legend, to destroy Galahad and Bridget. That story is particularly interesting because Bridget reminds me of Helen Mirren and Reds. We have a scene where she takes on Grendel, who can only be destroyed by ripping his arms off with a chainsaw. And to see this older lady just taking down this monster with a chainsaw was really a wonderful scene. And now in this, we start a new arc in issue number 13. And so it would be a good place for people who maybe haven't read the whole series so far to break in. They're looking for a sorceress who has been working with Merlin, the evil Merlin, to bring Camelot into the world. And they accidentally end up in a bar with a bunch of neo-Nazis who begin to beat Duncan to a pulp because he's great against monsters who may show up in our universe, but not against just normal thugs who are beating the heck out of him, until suddenly our last scene of the issue is the Green Knight comes in and takes out all of the neo-Nazis and gets ready to take on Duncan. So we have another really British literary piece, Gawain and the Green Knight, that gets introduced in this particular comic. It's action-filled, it's really in-depth with their knowledge of literature. So if you're interested in Arthurian legend, Beowulf, all of the British classics, then this is really a great comic. They've done a great job of weaving in these stories and the threat those monsters and beings might be if they broke into our universe. So Once and Future.
All right. Eric, I think you're up.
Hang on, I should probably get my screen thing off, especially considering my thing is all white right now. Okay. Oh, come on. I don't know what's going on now. Oh.
Technology is great when it works.
Okay. First one I have Wolverine, black, white, and blood. Essentially, that just describes the art style. The only three colors you get are black, white, and blood. It's not its own story. It's more like a series of vignettes. They get different writers, different artists. Basically, you get to see different sides of Wolverine and different parts. First story, Beast Within Them, you get to actually see back when Wolverine was in the Weapon X program. He's being sent to attack another monster. They want to test to see which one is stronger. You really only get Wolverine's internal monologue of where he is while he's in the Weapon X program, which is drugged up. He doesn't know what's going on. He just has something to do. Another one has the next one, I Shall Be a Wolf, revolves around Wolverine working with Nick Fury against Hydra. And it's pretty fun because, you think that it's one of those stories where you think that, oh, geez, how did Wolverine end up in that situation? And then you realize that Fury, the old Nick Fury, before he became like a Watcher, basically made him get his butt kicked. So that's fun. Another one, Cabin Fever, basically where Wolverine comes across a lone child in a cabin that looks like it had a severe bloodbath. And he tries to put together what happened and, basically save this kid. So yeah, it's a nice one. There's more series coming up. And, I like that you get to see different parts. You get to see Wolverine written by different different authors, drawn by different artists. And I think, seeing him in, black, white, and red, it's a different change. Maybe they also say by having to pay colorists. I don't know. But either way, if you're a fan of Wolverine, and who isn't, then definitely this is worth checking out.
So the answer to the old riddle, what's black and white and red all over, is no longer a newspaper.
Nope. It's black, white, and blood. And that works well.
So let's move from a collection of bloody Wolverine stories onto an epic collection with Katie.
Thank you. Yes, I hope to have epic review for you. So, Star Wars Epic Collection from the Empire line. I have Volume 6. It was just released a few weeks ago. Volume 6 I really enjoyed. Let's see. So there were kind of two main story collections. The first one was about effectively like James Bond, but in the Star Wars universe. So the Empire has all kinds of spies and operatives, and this one particular character gets sent all over the galaxy, and we get to see him gambling and drinking, wearing nice clothes, spending time with attractive people, and occasionally saving the day. So that was actually really cool. I enjoyed that. Character's name is Jahan Cross. Kind of a neat take for Star Wars, and definitely pretty recognizable. If you've seen a spy movie or an action movie, you'll identify with that right away. And then there were a couple nice Princess Leia, like what if stories. And then I really enjoyed seeing graphic novel interpretations of the two Force Unleashed video games. So in those video games, Darth Vader has a secret apprentice that he goes and sends out to hunt down Jedi and Rebel sympathizers. And then eventually he sends this apprentice named Starkiller, by the way, to kind of stir up rebellion. So kind of to be like an agent provocateur, but for the Empire. So that's the video game plot. In the graphic novel adaptations, the first Force Unleashed is told from the story of Proxy and Bail Organa. So kind of the narration is taking place after that video game, and then Proxy is recounting the story of Starkiller in the Force Unleashed to the reader. And then in the Force Unleashed Part 2, we get to see the story from Boba Fett's perspective, and he was nominally in the Force Unleashed 2 video game. So that was pretty interesting. I was actually surprised by that, but pleasantly. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Continue to have fun with the Epic collections. The Empire series has been especially good. If you're looking for a place to get started with these now close to 40 Epic collections, I would say Empire is a pretty solid place to go. Had a lot of fun with it. Looking forward to the next one. So may the Force be with you. That is Star Wars Epic Collection, The Empire, Volume 6.
All right.
So then is the
Sold me.
So is the Force Unleashed then considered canon in the current Star Wars universe, or is that
Good question. Good question. That actually raises a good point. It is not considered canon, and these Epic collections are reprinting all the comics from Dark Horse. So all the stuff that was the old EU and all those canons have now been made into Legends and are not the current timeline. So these are reprinting a bunch of old stuff. So no, Force Unleashed is not considered canon by the current storyline.
Now, one thing that people have noticed, and sometimes it's little things, just Easter eggs, and sometimes it's something a little bit more than that, is that some of the writers, and whether it's in sequel movies or TV shows or comics and books that have happened since all that stuff became non-canon, they've taken a lot of that and picked certain things and kind of brought it forward into what is canon. So even though the stuff didn't happen as it did then, it's clear that there are some people who were fans of some of those stories who are now working on current canon stories that are kind of giving little nods to a lot of that stuff that is no longer in canon.
Yes, I agree. Yep, definitely agree.
So then maybe there's a chance we could see Mara Jade in the future.
Oh God, I hope so. I would love that. But yeah, I mean, there is always a chance.
Or the Yuuzhan Vong, that would be great.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I think it has the potential to be really good if we get the right people on it. Yeah, I mean, there is always hope, and I guess I would just say, as a professional writer, I definitely appreciate continuity. But as a fan, I try to just have fun with it, and I sort of have my own little, like, my own timeline in my head where I'm like, well, these things could happen, and there's nothing that says they couldn't exactly happen. So I try to read it and have fun and think about, like, how would I appreciate this as a kid versus how would I appreciate this as a professional writer. But yeah, the Epic collection is not canon, but still a heck of a read and really worth your time if you want some great Star Wars books. So great question. I love it.
Right. Well, and sometimes I wonder if should Disney be able to decide what's canon just because they own the rights to the stuff now? I think we, as the people who read the stories in our own way, create for ourselves what canon really is. Ultimately, Disney can't tell me what I think the Star Wars timeline is. They can make their own consideration of that, but in the end, I'm gonna, in my own reading and understanding of the universe, are gonna make my own decision about what I wish the story would be, and kind of and see it in that light, because I really loved the old continuity that went on through all the books, and I thought it was great in that, yeah, George Lucas was the one who was really the final say in what went into that series of stories that followed on the movies. So to me, I guess that always will be what's canon.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that is certainly a very fair perspective, and really the beauty of a creative work that has impacted so many people is that it's going to mean something to each one of us, and we can all pull what is important to us into that. I love that, and you know, I fully support doing that. You know, there's things from the new canon I really enjoy. There's things from the old canon I love. There's definitely some really weird things in both that, you know, I'm fine not seeing again. Yeah, I love the books. I love the idea. And, you know, you're right. That is the beauty of a world like this, is that we can pick and choose what's important to us and, you know, how it relates to us at different moments in our lives. So, yeah. And as
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we lost Katie's audio for just a
I just cut it out. But as you guys both point out, yeah, we did. Am I back?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
But
yeah, I said all I really needed to say. So.
Yeah, but I think a lot of us, whether it's Star Wars or anything like that, we develop our own head canon, where we kind of pick and choose what we want to think of as how it is and how it isn't. Some people, I think it's straightforward. I think there's a number of people who everything up to Disney purchasing, all the rights. We'll look at all of that stuff as canon, and all of this as kind of the Disney Star Wars universe as being a separate thing. Other people will take what they feel are the best parts of all of it and kind of put it together as their own thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to say it.
But yeah,
and for what it's worth, most of the old legend stuff too is still pretty easy to get a hold of. So I do want to remind people, it's not like this stuff went away. We definitely did not go into your brain and erase it. So if you are interested in it, it is still pretty easy to get a hold of. And these epic collections are great. No, well said, David. I think you summarized that very well. And yeah, as you pointed out, there's creatives on the current stuff who clearly enjoy these other stories, and we are getting bits and pieces from it. So that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, just because somebody tells you, this is canon and that's not canon, and what's official and what's not, doesn't mean that you can't enjoy anything that they're saying isn't officially canon. It's up to you to enjoy the stories as you see fit.
Absolutely.
So I think that kind of gets me over to what I'll be talking about too, because DC is known for changing their continuity, with Crisis on Infinite Earths and things like that. Most of their crisis type storylines. I think this is the first crisis story that didn't really do that, and that was Identity Crisis. And in its own way, it still changed things because it kind of went back and retconned a few things. Identity Crisis was kind of a big deal. It was somewhat controversial because as we've seen some of those DC stories particularly get darker and darker, and we've had many conversations, you go back to a lot of our different episodes and listen to us talk about some of the darkness that has overtaken these comics, and how there's less and less hope. Identity Crisis, in a lot of ways, is one more step in going that direction, where they've taken some of these characters that we think of in DC as being the most heroic characters, and they made them cross some lines in the story. They kind of went back and said that they went and they did something that really changed how you might view them. And maybe you agree with their reasoning and maybe you don't. And that was kind of the point of this. So Identity Crisis is kind of a murder mystery where a well-known DC character is murdered. And you find out that there are a lot of twists in the story as to what happened and more importantly, why it happened and who was involved. And it goes a lot deeper than just someone killed this character. There's a lot of...
I think you could probably mention the character and it won't ruin the story.
Yeah, we're talking 2004, 2005. It's actually... and there are other characters that are killed throughout this. But the main one is Sue Dibney, who's the wife of the elongated man, Ralph Dibney. And I do like the way it started out because it's kind of a touching piece on their relationship, which I'm sure is intentional because they want you to feel that much worse when Sue is murdered. But there was something that happened back further with one of the versions of the Justice League, where there was an attack And Sue had been the victim in that case. And the person behind that one was Dr. Light, who becomes kind of a prime suspect right off the bat for some of these characters. And the big thing is that we find out that some characters, some of the Justice League at that point, decided that they were going to go into Dr. Light's mind and basically change it. The Flash kind of refers to it as lobotomizing him. And so you find out that the reason he was more of a joke villain that nobody really took seriously and wasn't considered a huge threat was because at one point he was more so, but then they changed this, and then he was just never capable of being more than that. And the Justice League at that time had voted whether or not to do this because they felt that if they didn't do it, that Dr. Light, now knowing things about the Justice League, could use that, and it could really hurt the League and have long-lasting effects on the League and their families and friends and people who know their identities. So that's sort of the whole basis of the story here, is that we've got this murder mystery going on, and kind of folded into that is what's going on with the Justice League and what some of their members had done and who was involved in it and who wasn't. And those who weren't involved, how do they feel? And, now that this is all kind of coming out into, the light, no pun intended there, but.
Yeah, and I think one of the most powerful things about the book is the argument that goes on between the members of the Justice League about whether this should happen or not. And the surprise of who are the people who vote, let's lobotomize him.
Right, because you get characters that you understand the reasoning, and some of them you understand, some of them you could maybe have seen voting for it, but voted against it. And you get to know their reasons behind it. And then, there had to be a tiebreaker, and it's kind of a surprise, as to who it was that actually voted to do this, that was the tiebreaker. And then, just bringing in the other League members and what to do about it. And then as that's going on, you get the murder itself and the person who did it, that sort of snowballs, because it was, there was one, reason behind the murder. And I don't want to say who it is, just in case anybody wants to go out and read this, because it kind of takes the fun out of a murder mystery if you know who did it.
Yep, know the answer.
Butler. And, once you realize what the reasons were and you see how what the person did and why and how it snowballed and got kind of out of control and caused more of a threat to not so much to the League members and our superheroes, but to their family and their friends. And everybody really starts watching out for their loved ones. Anybody who has family, especially family who knows who they are, their alter egos. They feel that there is this threat out there now, and they have to really be careful. And so there are people who go after some of their family and friends, and we have some casualties in all this. But it's a complex story that makes us kind of evaluate or reevaluate how these characters operate and why. And it does make some of them a little bit darker than they were before, because now you find out that they're capable of doing things that you may or may not find to be heroic, depending on the reasons. People do things with good intentions, but what they do, even with the best of intentions, may not be a good thing to do. And this does that, and you find yourself looking at your, these superheroes that you're supposed to look up to and that give us hope and everything. And we now have to question how they operate and why they operate in those ways.
Well, unlike any good morality play, it also forces you to ask the question, what would I do were I in the same situation? What decision would I make about this?
I know there was a lot of controversy around this when it came out and people found out what was going on with it. And I myself am a little torn on it because I could see things getting darker within comics. And I knew that this was a little bit of a more of a push in that way. But in some ways, I also enjoyed that it made me question things like that. So I did enjoy the story, even though comics in general, I saw it kind of slipping further down to that dark road. That would be one of my complaints now, as far as how a lot of these characters are. So this is a trade paperback form, and there are some extras in here which were kind of interesting. One of them is there's an introduction by Joss Whedon. And it's kind of dated now, so it's funny to read because in this introduction, he's kind of like talking about DC and like he doesn't want to mention that other company, which of course made him, though a lot of us knew who Joss Whedon was before, the Marvel, the MCU made Joss Whedon even more of a household name. So him avoiding saying Marvel and whatever, because at the time, this was done during that time when he was working on doing his own version of Wonder Woman, and that's mentioned in here. So it's kind of funny to look back on that. There's other extras in here. The artist Rags Morales, he goes through and there's a spot in here where he casts the characters kind of as what influenced the way that he drew them and everything with their personalities and the way that they looked, with mostly with actors. There are some other people, that were famous people, sports people and stuff like that, but a lot of them are more like actors. It talks about some of the original influences, how the Elongated Man had originally, he and Sue were kind of influenced by Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. So that's actually used, and in Sue's funeral, he actually draws them into the funeral, a gray-haired Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. So it's always interesting to kind of go in and look at what who influenced an artist in the way that they draw the characters. And then there's also a breakdown by Brad Meltzer and Regs Morales on kind of some of the pages and what they did. So some of the behind the scenes things that you didn't get reading the original 7 issues of the miniseries, you get in the trade paperback form. So, but it's a good story, and for anybody who's DC fans who haven't read it, I'd recommend it, especially since and DC changing their canon around. New 52 kind of wiped a lot of this stuff out, and a lot of this has actually been brought back in. So it is relevant to what is canon, and even if it's not, it's good if you want something that's going to question, it's going to cause you to question some of the morality about things like that. So I would definitely recommend it. And I think that takes us back around to Kirby.
Hey, I don't know what the hell you're all talking about, but I want to shoot this cannon pretty soon. But I checked out A Year of Marvels, The Unbeatable. Apparently they must have done six issues for this back in 2016. 2 months per issue. They give you a little calendar for the month for each one, and then it just has a story. This one, the first story is Nick Fury is just in time to attend Japan's Bond Festival, but he's not here to celebrate, not when an illegal weapons auction is about to begin. In here, a kid, basically his father dies, he inherits all his dad's collectibles that he's been hiding and probably got illegally or whatever, and he starts selling them off to people. Gradually, and Nick Fury comes across characters with different weapons, committing different crimes, and he's trying to figure out where all these weapons are coming from. And then he finds out about the kid and stuff and sneaks his way into the weapons, one of the next future weapon sales and stuff. And Nick Fury's little disguise there. But yeah, he has everything from handguns and stuff to full body armor, weapons and robots and stuff like that. So check it out, learn a little bit more about who it is and what they got and who comes to buy the weapons and what happens in the long run with Nick Fury when he gets caught up in the center of a big arms deal, and he's a SHIELD agent, and there's a robot that likes to take out SHIELD agents in the weapons deal. But yeah, that was a fun story. And then the reason I bought this, of course, was because Squirrel Girl's on the cover. And in hers, Tippy Toe is flying solo until Squirrel Girl is done studying. But when a villain threatens Central Park, she's got to call in the big guns, enormous guns, relatively speaking, because Tippy Toe and Rocket Raccoon are small. It's the team up that you've all been waiting for. And it is fun. Tippy Toe comes across this character that's in the park, and he has this ability to bring the trees to life. And all of a sudden, Tippy Toe is just up there putting her nuts in the tree, getting ready for winter, and all of a sudden she gets this rumble, and the nuts go flying everywhere, and the tree just starts walking away, and all the squirrels go jumping out, see what's going on, and the trees just basically take over the park. And she comes across that character and tells them, you don't belong here, you gotta take you out. Needs some weapons though to take on because she's all alone, and Squirrel Girl's off studying for some exams and stuff. And just by chance, Rocket Raccoon was at a weapons arm deal and was walking through the park and ends up giving Tippy Toe a little hand to deal with the menace to the park. It was a very fun little story. It's just, you can imagine those two together and they become little pals. It's a fun little team up. But yeah, it looks, I want to check out the other 5. It's a nice little 2-story event, each one. So check those out. Marvels.
All right. And next up, I think we have another Marvel book, Werewolf by Night.
Yep. This is Werewolf by Night, the complete collection, volume 3. What I love about Werewolf by Night, and it started back in the late 60s, this line of comics, is it really captures the spirit of the MGM monster movies. I mean, the werewolf is very much in that vein. If you read volume 1 of the complete collection, it really is totally kind of in that sense of how it's written. The original story is Jack Russell, an 18-year-old, is caught up in the family curse of being a werewolf. And his family is cursed because of the Darkhold, which becomes a big thing in the Marvel universe later on. But by the time you get to volume 3, what's interesting is they're beginning to, they've had this long time of Werewolf by Night being more kind of that monster story comic book, but now they're working it into the superheroes that are part of the universe as well. So in volume 3, the Werewolf by Night runs into Moon Knight. And this is Moon Knight before we have him now, the Fist of Khonshu. Here he's a mercenary, and they give him this suit that becomes the traditional Moon Knight suit and some silver weapons so he can bring Jack Russell in. So that's one of the stories that's in here. Moon Knight also works with Ghost Rider and Morbius. Ends up working with Spider-Man and Spider-Woman. There are sections where he's with Iron Man. So Werewolf by Night suddenly becomes not just a monster comic, but now he's thrust into this world of superheroes. But also in volume 3, there are some really good stories where they continue the old tradition too. Jack Russell trying to free himself from the curse by looking in this haunted house where supposedly the person who owned the house had documents that might be able to help him conquer the werewolf curse. We have a story where he's working with Dr. Voodoo fighting zombies, which is an interesting story. And I just love the way that they managed to capture the horror stories of that age in their comic book adaptation of who the Werewolf by Night is. So anybody who loved those old MGM movies, not just this volume of Werewolf by Night, but all of the volumes in the complete collection are really neat stories that capture that spirit and the real struggle of the main character, Jack Russell, to deal with his curse of being the werewolf by night.
Of course, with a name like Jack Russell, I picture him turning into a little dog that yaps a lot.
Yeah, from the ankles
He's
down.
much bigger than a Jack Russell Terrier.
All right. Okay, so I think that brings us back around to Eric.
Yep. Well, I have yet another one from Aftershock called We Live. It's put out by the Miranda Brothers. First issue comes out with a nice 3-fold cover. Gives you a little feeling for the art.
It was really great.
It starts off with a fairly, positive, upbeat story. 90% of the world is dead. Essentially, we didn't listen. Global warming, war, mutations, it's all finally taken its toll. And now we've humankind, the 10% that's left has now gone into 9 megacities in the few areas that are left inhabitable. But anyway, one day, which basically changes the course of the world, they get several pods show up on Earth from the sky. Turns out a bunch of aliens are like, yeah, we've been watching you, and the next major event is basically going to destroy all life on your planet. But there is some hope because they've dropped off 5,000 bracelets on Earth. And they basically decided, okay, you can take 5,000 of your children and we will raise them. We will put them on a new planet. Your species can survive. So basically this is taking place to the point where the bracelets, they've been all around the inhabitable areas of the world. Bunch of people gather on a bus to go to one of the 9 cities, and they're on their way through what is essentially a wasteland, so that way they can get brought back, given their chance of new life. It centers around a brother and sister, a sister who decided to take the bracelet and put it on her little brother. It's Tala and, this is a hard word, what is it? Hototo.
Hoto, yep.
Hototo. And so bus goes out. They end up in a major storm. And, now they have to hike through wilderness so that way they can get to one of the beacons. There is one part in the book which I find fairly disturbing. They come across these creatures called molders, which look like a cross between Swamp Thing and zombies. And you end up seeing a little girl who gets bitten, and within a few minutes, she gets turned into basically a mindless creature. So, it kind of shows you how very dangerous the world has now become, because you get hit by one of these zombies, few minutes, you're a monster and ready to turn everyone you know and love into another monster. So I don't know, like I say, with a lot of Aftershock, they do a good job of setting it up. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this one goes. And I think another fun thing that they did to try to make this multimedia, you have a little QR code in the side that, you know, you scan it, it takes you to a soundtrack that the Miranda brothers have decided, you know, goes well with the story. So, and, you know, I don't know how long we're to be using QR codes for. I mean, give us like 10 years, they're probably going to be obsolete. So, I mean, you read it now, you might not be able to get the same experience that you would, you know, further down the line. So there's one thing I like about it, you know, they're making it a little more interactive. So, you know, with this, I'm starting to realize that Aftershock is becoming one of my favorite to-go independent publishers. Most of their titles, you know, they're usually limited series, but, you know, they're stories that they're self-contained. They come in, they tell you what they want to, and there's a definite end. A few are open-ended, but, you know, a lot of the ones I've read from Aftershock have had a definite end. So, but yeah, I'm looking at the company a lot more closely these days because, you know, they always seem to get out some good stories, and We Live is definitely a good one.
It is.
So.
I just read issue number 2, and I won't give you any of it, but it really ratchets up the danger and the struggles of this world, so you will enjoy it.
Okay. I didn't know it yet. I didn't get it yet. So,
in issue 1, one of the things you didn't talk about that I thought was also a neat sort of piece of it is, for those who might have thought of it as they were reading the front part of the comic, they also show you what happens if somebody tries to grab one of these kids who has a bracelet, take the bracelet off, and give it to another kid. There are some extreme extreme consequences for this. So do not take the bracelet off of one child and try to give it to another.
Yeah, it's not good. So,
all right. Unless I missed anything, I think that concludes our non-spoiler segment. All right. So now we'll get over to the letters page. Okay. So in this week's letters page, we were asked the question, what normal day job would the superhero of your choice have if they were fired from saving the world? Anybody want to take the first shot at this one?
I'll go last.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Katie.
All right. So my superhero is Star-Lord. And I think if he had to get a normal job, he would be a radio DJ. Because he loves music. He's always got tunes going. He's really into physical media and cassette tapes, and I feel like you could make it like a niche job out of that in radio. So I would say that. I think that Star-Lord would be a radio DJ.
There you go. I mean, he is more or less the DJ for the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's always, you know, picking the tunes that they're going to fight or work to.
It'd have to be an old time radio station, though.
I'd support that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he could be on like the classic rock station for sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, he'd always be good with his witty banter.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he'd be fun for doing interviews and like doing the morning show and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the morning show. There you go. You got him doing the morning show, and you bring in like Rocket to do, I don't know, sports or, you know, whatever. And
oh, that'd be cool.
Maybe the older Groot for news.
Yeah. That would be fun. I like that. That would be cool. Okay, Guardians of the Galaxy radio show. That would be awesome. I'd love that.
Yeah, I can completely imagine this. Although, I mean, he's doing the news already, but I was going to say Groot also could give the weather, because whether you understand him or not, he's got just as much chance of being accurate as
anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Consistency. And Drax would be like the straight man of the group because everything's literal. So he would be the one who would be like not understanding all the jokes, and it would be all the funnier. Yeah, this would be fantastic.
All right. Anybody else? Kirby said he'd go last. Eric, I know you got one.
Well, mine isn't really a superhero. Everyone knows who he is. The Punisher, of course. A day job for this guy would be interesting because, you know, his skills are mostly in making other people dead and completely staying off the grid so nobody gets a hold of him. Great. Can't. Sorry.
Oh, more technical difficulties.
Yeah. But anyway, I would have to say if there were no criminals for him to kill, and, you know, basically he had, you know, no reason to shoot people, I could see him becoming an off-the-grid urban and outdoor survival expert. Because, you know, in today's day and age of, you know, smartphones, constant surveillance, he managed to stay off the grid. Although I guess he's in Ravencroft prison, so maybe not that much right now. But so if a person wants to stay off the grid, you know, survive, and not just survive, but, you know, be able to have like a level of physical activity, which, you know, a guy his age is, he would know how to do it. So I would definitely say survival expert or survival instructor, that would definitely be up Frank's alley.
He could get his own reality show, one of those survival shows that they have on. Yeah,
that would be good, but how you get a contract and payment with his off-the-grid lifestyle, that could be interesting. So, yeah.
Dr. Kurtzdad?
Well, this was an interesting question because I could think of a lot of things. But so to narrow it down a little bit for me, what I thought about was what are niches in our society that we've lost people who filled them? And now some of these superheroes could step in to take their place. So I thought, well, Doctor Strange could fill in. We've lost David Copperfield and we've lost Siegfried and Roy. Doctor Strange could take over the act in Vegas and fill in there for him. I thought Animal Man, we lost Crocodile Hunter. Here's the new Crocodile Hunter. He could handle the job, you know, coming along. I thought about Ghost Rider could fill in for Evel Knievel. I'm sure he could get across the Grand Canyon, even though Evel couldn't make it. And Mr. Miracle could be the new Houdini. So, you know, there's a lot of things we're missing because greats have left the world, but now we've got the superheroes.
Although I think it begs the question, would these people be considered greats in a world of superheroes?
Couple of them, no. Animal Man, I don't know if he ever was really. But he could make it as Crocodile Hunter.
I think some of those characters, have been used in comics. I'm pretty sure Evel Knievel has made comic book appearances.
Yep.
And things like that. Houdini.
Siegfried and Roy, I think, have been one or two. So,
so that they still probably those real life people probably would have still been looked at in a similar fashion in that superhero world as they were in the real world. Although maybe they themselves would have had a more superhuman twist to them.
Crikey, it's Animal Man.
See, for me,
let's see what happens when you flick him behind the ear. Oh.
For me, this was an easy one because a lot of the superheroes that I would pick have day jobs anyways. My favorite superhero being Superman, he's got a day job. And to be honest, I think if you stripped all of the abilities, from Superman, or the world was just so safe that he didn't need to be doing it, I think that he would still continue on as a newspaper reporter for, the Daily Planet or whatever paper or media outlet he's working for at the time. I think that he would still continue to do that and to want to sort of affect the world in some way, even if it was just by reporting on what other people are doing rather than making the news. So I think that's kind of where I would go. Most of the superheroes that come to mind instantly have these other jobs anyways, and I think they would still be doing it. Although, if you looked at somebody like Peter Parker, if he wasn't being Spider-Man, he probably, and he has moved from being a photographer for the Daily Bugle in comics from time to time. But I think that he would do that, and he probably would have pursued something a little bit more academically and been some sort of a research scientist or something like that. But
a millionaire inventor, which he was,
which
his company
they
bombed.
did, you think, well, this guy can only be a photographer for the Daily Bugle making minimum wage, or I mean less than minimum wage.
Less than minimum wage.
He got paid, a few bucks for pictures because all of his pictures were crap. Kirby?
Yeah, how many do you want?
As many as you want to give us.
And this is a pretty easy one too. It's like, figure X-ray robot, you can make him a crossing guard, make it nice and simple. And you got the common sense ones like Howard the Duck. He might as well just stay a private investigator. And you got the Blob and Bertha. They could be like bouncers. Ant-Man and the Wasp and stuff, they can do plumbing, so they can get down in the pipes. And Galactus can be our planetary defense, just take out all the asteroids and all that so nothing hits us. Wolverine, Shredder, Sabretooth, they can basically be shredders and destroy everything. Black Bolt can do a hurricane, tornado prevention, stuff like that, just reverse. Squirrel Girl can be a park caretaker.
DNR.
The Riddler can be a crossword puzzle maker. Batman can be a researcher. Superman and a lot of super people with like heat ray vision, flight abilities and stuff can be steel workers.
Possibly chefs, because I don't know what food tastes like if it's cooked by heat vision. It could be like a new culinary art form.
Your lumberjack
waste disposal, they could just burn up all the waste and sweep the ashes up.
Like lumberjacks, you can use Axe Cop, the Man Called Axe, Hatchet. I figure you were talking Spider-Man, Aquaman, they can be fishermen. Spider-Man can make spider web nets, and they can go out there.
Spider-Man could be a window washer.
Yep. I figure any Jedi out there could be like an ice carver or something like that. Hulk, the Thing, Concrete, they can be quarry workers. It just goes on and on and on. Professor X can do missing persons. Thorn can do weather control. Cyclops can do meteor defense.
Or Professor X. Professor X could be one of those guys who guesses your weight at the carnival.
Okay. Medusa and Doc Ock, I figure, can be assembly workers in factories because they can just do stuff real quick.
No, but I do like the ideas that we were talking about weathermen for a radio thing, but having like Storm or somebody like that, it actually does work, because even if they're wrong in the forecast, they can
make it right.
It's not snowing. Are you sure? But now I have to ask, what about Deadpool? What would Deadpool do?
Fireman. He's already burnt up. Doesn't have to worry about getting burnt up anymore. His body will rehabilitate.
Of course,
Sticking
I think
his
he's
head
more
in the
from
lion's
starting
mouth.
here.
Like Magneto can run a salvage yard.
Oh, Deadpool would be a great stunt man.
Yeah.
Even if it goes bad, it still goes good.
Deadpool could do entertainment, entertainment.
Cut his head off
his head and be entertained for hours.
Work in haunted houses at Halloween.
His wall break can also probably give him some type of clairvoyance because he's the only one there who knows he's a comic character.
He can guess the reader's weight.
Well, yeah. But that would be a weird issue.
He could be the test
principal.
He could be the test dummy for cars.
Sounds like Gecko from The Boys.
Yeah, you could go on and on and on and on. It's like there's just so many different things. The Chaos Girls could be models. Hobgoblin, the Green Goblin, the Vulture, they can all be Amazon drone delivery people.
I think the answer to this is limited only by your imagination.
Yep. Agreed.
All right. Well, I think that actually wraps things up. I feel like this was kind of a quick episode. Although we didn't have the breaks that a lot of our YouTube video watchers get to see, like behind the scenes when Anthony's got to, stop the recording and save it.
I figure Anthony will probably send in a couple videos for you too.
Well, I actually had asked him about that, if he wanted to do some pre-recorded things that I could just insert in there. And initially he was going to think about that, but he's not joining us because it's getting close to Thanksgiving. Things have picked up at the grocery store, and so he's working longer than usual hours and just didn't have time, wasn't able to make it in. When you get trucks that are supposed to be delivering at 9 a.m. and don't show up until 5 p.m. or whatever, and it kind of creates those issues. So he was thinking about doing that, and then by yesterday he hadn't found the time to do it, so he just let me know that he would not be doing it, at least not for this time. But we still have Christmas and things like that coming up where I'm sure he's going to be busy and quite possibly might have to miss another one of these. So, all right, so I guess that's it for this week. But you can join us every week. We put these up on iTunes and Podomatic and pretty much anywhere that you can find a podcast. You can find this podcast and our other podcasts, Under the Cowl, Kirby's variation on that one.
Under the Cowl of MS.
Yes, which he's on like episode 500 by now.
Only 65.
So, all right. So hopefully, if you're joining us for this one, or if you're not joining us for this one, hopefully you will join us for more in the future. So, otherwise, this whole time, I've been really just filling in for Anthony.
I've been shredding Kevin.
I am an intern for the Guardians of the Galaxy radio show.
If I wasn't a superhero, no one would hire me for anything.
Was that a goat?
To be continued.